Hello, everyone, and welcome to PROCEPTION Live, brought to you by Avnet and Hackster presented to you by the devEco. We plan to bring you a series of episodes covering the Windows on ARM story from a history of Microsoft to where we are today and beyond. There have been so many amazing milestones, hardworking people, and innovative companies putting the time in to make this magic happen. My name is Robert Wolff, Hackster PRO, and core member of the devEco community. I'll be joined by my co-host, Tory Moghadam. And our featured guest today is Trevor Kane, Senior Account Executive at Avnet. And this episode is Windows on ARM. And this episode is all about Windows on ARM. So Trevor is our Windows on ARM expert. If you have any questions during this stream, please feel free to drop them in the comments or the chat on our YouTube channel. And we'll do our best to get to them as soon as possible. If you enjoy what you see, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to the devEco YouTube channel for more content like this. Now, I think without further ado, I want to get these introductions out of the way. You may know me, Robert, who has given many live streams like this in the past, but I have a new co-host for this live stream, and I want to bring Tory Moghadam onto the call here so we can get him introduced and we can start making tons of cool content like this with amazing people and experts in the industry. So, Tory, I want to give my introduction after yours, if you don't mind. But I don't mind at all. Origin stories. So maybe go ahead. Let's hear what you got. Give us your origin story.
So my name is Tory Moghadam. I've been in the tech industry for 10 years, over a decade actually, and I specialize in cybersecurity and regulatory compliance. I'm also the founder of a project called Open Muscle, which tries to solve the prosthetic sensor problem utilizing open source and open hardware tools. And I'm excited to be here, to be joined by Robert and with Trevor, and I'm excited to learn about Windows on ARM.
That's awesome, Tory. And you bring up Open Muscle. That's actually how we met. So Tory joined the devEco Discord server. I want to say like maybe it was a month or two ago. The first thing he did is he posted a video in our Promote Yourself channel or something, and it was this really cool Open Muscle project where you have this band of sensors that go around your forearm. And assuming you are an amputee or you're missing a portion of your arm, your hand, it uses AI to measure the muscle movements, and then you could put a prosthetic on there and actually control the prosthetic based on the muscle movements that are happening on your forearm. I said, is the guy in this video the same guy who posted the video? Because some people post videos of other things that they enjoy, and I thought, I'm just going to ask him. So I asked him, we hopped on a call, and then here we are, a month or two later, doing a live stream together. This is awesome. Good story. We'll be telling some people maybe in the future about this. So, let's now, I think, get into the good stuff, right, Tory? I want to meet Trevor. So Trevor Kane, we have joining us. Let's bring him onto the call and meet Trevor real quick. Trevor,
sounds great.
Welcome to PROCEPTION, Trevor.
Hey, thank you. Really appreciate it. And yeah, amazing background, Tory and Robert. Really appreciate you hosting me today. Thank you very much. As you noted, I'm an account executive with Avnet, and been with Avnet. Actually, I'm a bit of a unicorn. I've been here 28 years, so I've been here longer than I haven't, which it's been a whole lot of fun. It keeps it interesting, that's for sure. We get to see just about everything that goes on under the sun or under the umbrella in the technology industry at some point in some shape or form, and that's what's kept me here so long. Love this job and love doing things like this. So thanks again for hosting me.
You know, Trevor, I'll say nowadays you don't really see people hanging around companies as long as 27 years. And I genuinely am impressed. I think that it's a culture that the younger people, the younger generations have adopted to kind of jump around every 3 to 5 years. But when you stay with a company that long, I mean, you have some knowledge to share. You have some experience and some wisdom to drop on the folks at Avnet. So I do have a question. I have a rabbit hole I do want to jump down later. Maybe you saw that in my questions, but but there's got to be like a lot of cool stuff that you've seen over the years. So there are people in our audience. I want to remind you all that if you have questions for Trevor, myself, for Tory, please feel free to drop them there. If we don't answer them right away, we will get to them though. All right. And if you're watching this on demand, drop them in the comments. We'll be sure to get someone on there and answering them as well. Okay. So let's start this off. Windows on ARM. Okay. I want to start this off with a big picture view of this. All right. So the Windows on ARM story starts somewhere. Trevor, sorry. Can you start us off with this story? Paint a picture. Give us that bird's eye view of where we're going today.
Yeah, I mean, for many years, x86 has kind of been the default standard for Windows. A lot of people have the perception that it's a large kernel, it's expensive, it's got all these things surrounding it, but Windows on ARM is something that's really come into play or come into view in the last few years, where we're actually now seeing ARM processors that are very capable of running not only the Microsoft Windows 10 IoT and 11 IoT, but very capable of doing a lot of the workloads and functions that people are looking for at a very low power, low cost kind of standpoint. If you look at traditional x86 type processors, they tend to have a TDP that's pretty high. ARM's a little different, right? And it's very propagated in the market. I mean, if you look at how many ARM devices you might interact with in a daily, in your daily life, it's unreal, right? Whether they're MCUs or MPUs or something really cool like some of the high-end TI or MediaTek or Qualcomm products that are out there today. It's stunning how we don't realize just how much embedded compute is in our daily routine. Is that a fair kind of opening for that?
Oh, it's huge. You know how they say, like, on average, your picture is taken this many times if you're out in public a day? It's like you're interacting with probably 10 or 100 times more ARM devices than the amount of times your picture is being taken.
Yes.
But yeah, no, accurate. Very cool intro. Tory, it looks like you want to say something there.
Oh, I always want to say something, but Windows on ARM is kind of new to me, and so it just fascinates me. And coming from cybersecurity, like the power consumption, having embedded devices, that's completely up my alley. So yeah, how many devices are on ARM, and what a project looks like fascinates me. If you want to talk about any of the process to some of the projects you've worked with Windows on ARM.
Yeah. So, I mean, Windows embedded has been around for several years. I mean, you can go all the way back to .NET and, some of the development that has been done in that space as much as a decade ago. Today, the projects that we see, might be more industry specific in a vertical such as medical, industrial, HMIs, aerospace and defense, where there's a lot of security needs. There's a lot of paying attention to just how those OTAs and how those security problems or challenges might be managed from an enterprise standpoint, as opposed to just what's going on an individual device, if that's a fair statement. Some of the projects that we've worked on that have been very successful probably would be more medical, in the medical space. So large, scalable medical devices where they need a repeatable, wash, rinse, repeat type of solution, and they don't want to necessarily have to think too hard about managing, some of the security aspects and some of the personal health information and HIPAA compliance that they need to achieve in those spaces. If that's a fair statement.
Yeah, I think so. Tory, you want to follow up on that one? Because I have a bunch of questions here.
Yeah. Well, from my perspective in cybersecurity, there's always cybersecurity threats going on. And Windows, from my perspective, seems to be proactive in its approach to trying to meet regulatory issues and regulatory security. And I found that fascinating and having devices that are actually embedded, that seems like it could be difficult. So I'd like to hear more about how are people excited about the security offerings of Windows on ARM from your experience?
In my experience, yeah, particularly with Windows 11, there's a lot more security implemented. Being able to take care of security from either a software trusted platform module or an actual secure element or trusted platform module that is separate from the processor. You can implement that on Windows 11. That's a really great feature. It's nice that they made it optional, because that means we're not just throwing away a whole bunch of hardware in the same space that want to upgrade to Windows 11 or have that kind of path. There's other things to kind of consider in that work, because you do have to pull that, and you do have to put some effort into making sure that you know what your TPMs are and where they're being programmed and what device you select. But that on my side of the business, that's really the hardware product strategy combined with the software product strategy. So long-term kind of scalable usage.
Awesome.
Does that answer it?
Yeah. Is that usually the deciding factor, maybe, that somebody might choose Windows on ARM would be some of those offerings? Or
it is a lot, because one of the nice things about Windows on ARM, or Windows in general, is that you don't you can rely on Microsoft to continually update your security and your profile and your OTAs and your software. Whereas if you're using something else, you're kind of having to look at maintenance on that long term. And that's an associated cost that isn't there with Microsoft. It's a one-time license, right? So, and it's the beautiful thing about Windows 10 and 11 IoT for Enterprise LTSC is you have a 10-year life cycle with that product. So, and in the embedded space, that's really, really important to a lot of customers and a lot of verticals. You don't want to be redesigning your software all the time. You don't want to be moving to this, to this, to this, just to maintain a product, right? You've got enough on your plate with the hardware and sustaining that hardware without worrying about what am I going to do with my software package. So one of the nice things is that 10-year sustainability plus an extra 5 years after what they consider the OTAs are kind of done for security and for product updates from a software perspective, but you have another 5 years before end of sale. So you can still buy it. Yeah, 15 years is a pretty decent life cycle for an embedded product, right?
Oh yeah.
I remember back in the day when I first started my career, roughly 10, 11 years ago, it was Qualcomm doing the Snapdragon chipsets. It was, I think, the 410C, which turned in the 410E, is the APQ 8016 chipset. Their whole thing was like long lifetime support, long lifetime availability, and they were aiming for a 10-year lifetime. And so now we're talking about 10-year, 15-year lifetime. You put these devices out there, they are supported, they are available, they are secure, they are good, and that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, we have products that we've been sustaining for 20 years for customers, right? And it's because they can't necessarily move on just like that.
Yeah.
So one of those things that we can provide as well.
Well, Trevor, I want to go into some history here. All right, I want a little bit of a history lesson. We're going to paint the story here for Microsoft and leading us up to where we are today. Because I understand you have a good story around the history of Microsoft. So maybe we can kind of caveat over to there and then come back over to some more in-depth questions. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, Microsoft's been around for since 1975, I guess. Paul and Alan decided that they were going to do this, and or Paul Allen and Bill Gates decided they were going to do this thing, and they were all in. So it's not like it's a new company, but where I want it to be, kind of recognized is this is two college kids in a garage, right? They're trying to figure it out. They're just starting a business. Smart dudes, but let's be honest. I mean, Bill Gates is a college dropout, right? He decided to go and do this, and he was very successful at it. The first thing that they did was kind of, and it was micro-soft, which was really, microcontroller software, right? It wasn't Microsoft. It had a hyphen in it, and that's all interesting and everything. But the first computer that they really started, working with or developed an operating system for, which was pretty rudimentary, literally had 16 lights. It was from a company called MITS, right? And they were in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And, Paul Allen literally and Bill Gates wrote a visual. They told them they had it. They didn't really have it because they were just looking to make a mark. But they told the owner of MITS back in that time that, and by the way, MITS was a rocket company, mobile, like, the little rockets that you launch and whatever.
Oh yeah, like are you talking about the little car, the little kind of
little model rockets? Yeah,
yeah.
little
Okay,
model
I used to launch it. Yeah.
So that's how simple this first personal kind of compute engine was. Is it was meant to launch these little rockets, and had 16 lights. You flip the switch, one turned on, and then you ignite it and launch a rocket. And they were almost in bankruptcy, but Paul and Bill flew out there. Well, Paul flew out there. He literally wrote the bootloader on a napkin in the airplane because he forgot to do it when they were back home. So, think about Microsoft and where it is now and how we interact with it every day. But think about where it started. Like this is the dream job of inventors and innovators and people who make stuff that provides an outcome that impacts the world. So I love the story of Microsoft from that perspective. And they've had some bad press over the years. That's okay. Let's be honest. We're all going to be using Microsoft 50 years from now too. Yeah. So how do we make it relevant? How does it fit into your design? What outcome are you trying to create? And how do we help you with Microsoft and their story?
I love it. Yeah. I mean, like, it makes me wish I dropped out of college, to become a billionaire.
Yeah. Don't we all?
Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. Okay, cool. So we have the history of Microsoft now. I'm going to dive a little bit into, the embedded space again and talk about Windows on ARM and its gaining of traction, right? So we have, I have a question here. So how do you foresee its integration with existing embedded systems or embedded software ecosystems as we are, and how will it affect development processes in highly regulated industries? So I guess, does that question make sense, or do I need to explain it a little bit more?
You can try and explain a little bit more, but I think I understand what you're asking. Okay. There are going to be a lot of, one of the things that changes the technology strategy and market is legislation that requires different security levels or different deployment and infrastructure. Let's put it that way. Infrastructure, medical, industrial, whatever it might be. Those are important vertical markets. And, what we're seeing is that Microsoft is really taking those into account with their Windows 10 and Windows 11 IoT for Enterprise, LTSC. And, at the end of the day, if you're developing a product around infrastructure or medical or something that has, a regulatory body over it, you're going to need a very, very strong software partner to be able to deploy your hardware at scale. And software is really going to, in a lot of cases, define what hardware you're going to be able to implement, right? So Windows on ARM takes that into account. Now we've got a low power, high performance processing engine that can utilize what we're used to and utilize all the security and the value that's in that kernel.
How is
your question?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And so how are the forces that be, let's say, the big companies that are playing their part here? And I mean, I want to say, like, very amazingly playing their part here. How are they taking into account the fact that there are so many chips out there, right? I mean, it's not the same as you have the x86 architecture where it's just Intel or it's just AMD. It is much more complex. With all of the chip makers out there, how are you all kind of dealing with this? How are you kind of making this happen? Because it's quite amazing.
there's kind of two paths there, right? So there's upstream development and engagement with suppliers. So when you're developing a board, you're creating a device for people to go out and use in the market, you've really got to collaborate with the suppliers in the world. So the Qualcomms, the NXP, the TI, the people that are making the high performance ARM product available in the market. And when you're building that device, you really need their buy-in to develop a BSP or your BIOS strategy or UFI strategy, and then be able to, also put the operating system on top of it with all the relevant drivers. So, and that might include, anything from the Mac and PHY to the memory to whichever else. So it is a very complex engagement, to say the least. But we've kind of got that workflow down from an Avnet embedded compute standpoint. So we work with those suppliers very closely to make sure that when we're engaging in those discussions and deploying those devices, that all those little things are in place. It doesn't just magically happen. Right. And anybody on this call who is a hardware or software engineer knows that's kind of a tipping point, right? The goal is to create something that is scalable, but also helps people get to market and reduces their time, to revenue, because that's so important these days for companies, is that we're going to start this project and we've got CapEx and OpEx to consider. So how soon do we get to money? Right?
Yeah.
How do we deploy at scale real fast?
And, this is actually amazing you bring this up. Avnet is kind of acting as that central hub, that congregation area where you have the chip makers, you have the software people, you have everyone kind of like congregating here, where then the devices get put out by you, right? I mean, like the Windows on ARM devices are coming out by you, and you're working together with all of them to make sure that they have a functional, developer ecosystem to utilize.
Yeah. And we work with a lot of our channel partners, or we're their channel partner, to make sure that, they have their devices enabled properly, right? With our software teams and such, a lot of times we're writing BSPs and BIOS and UFIs for a lot of these manufacturers that we represent. So we ensure that these are ready to go to market. We don't want the headache that, comes with not having a driver ready, or not having, a product ready, and kind of whittling through the weeds to make it work. So yeah, we do that too. Like I said to you before when we chatted, often I describe Avnet as one of the largest technology solutions companies in the world that no one's ever heard of. And it's 100% true, because we don't brand anything. We don't produce our own products necessarily, right? We enable technology innovators to take something to market based on an outcome and based on a strategy that they have.
Yeah. Okay, Tory, do you have a question? Because there is one question that came in from the audience, but I think maybe if you have one,
let's go to there. You answered already, Trevor, but I wanted to say that, are they surprised that you exist, right? Because that just sounds wonderful that you're able to help navigate these things. But I asked you that before, off stream, of course.
Yeah, sometimes it's a little eye-opening when we get into the deep discussions with companies and they understand exactly what our capabilities and what our global footprint looks like, and just even understanding that we've been doing this for 103 years, right? It's like there's not that many companies that have been knocking around for 103 years.
Oh no.
I
wouldn't know. I wasn't there. No.
Yeah.
Yes. So we have a question from actually one of our community members that's been around for a long time. His name is Hybrid Robotics, and it's a question. I want to say actually this was kind of like some stuff that I'm hoping to get into maybe at some point later on in this Windows on ARM series. Though it is not so much focused on embedded here. So what kind of ARM systems, cores, memory, etc., does one need to get the same performance of a reasonable x86 Windows system? And Trevor, I mean, if this isn't a question for this stream, I just think maybe we take note of it so that maybe we can answer it on a later stream.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough question because the x86 families are very scalable. I mean, you can go from a very simple, Celeron or Atom type processor where the TDP and the processing power is a little bit, on the low end, or you can go all the way up to a Xeon in that family. If I was going to say what's comparable, I would say if you're looking at ARM for your processing power and you're realistic about it, if you want to see a median performance, you're looking at a 5X core. And if you want to see high performance, you're looking at something like an A78. And a lot of these ARM processors right now will come either in 4 cores, 8 cores, and they might even have a few more on the system, right? They might have a couple of R cores on the system or something like that, just to do some of the housekeeping and other functionality. But, then again, you look at some of Qualcomm's product, and we're still developing right now on the Snapdragon X or 10, whatever you want to call it, Elite for an embedded platform. And that thing is going to be insane, right? From a processing power standpoint for embedded applications or robotics or something like that. It's going to be incredible when we're done. So right now we see a lot of suppliers in that, quad core kind of A78 space with maybe a couple of other small ARM cores on board. Hopefully that answers. That's kind of the performance metric that we see is reasonable because it hits the middle of the road for x86 and maybe the high performance side of or medium side of ARM.
I'm sure Dale Hybrid Robotics will let us know if that hit the mark. If not, he'll come back with more.
Okay.
Tory, you want to get one out there? Because another one came in from the community, actually, if you want to get that one as well while we're at it.
Let's get that one as well, and then we can
right.
return to our questions.
All right. So this one actually came in from the Hackster IO and Avnet community. Hello, Hackster. Hello, Avnet. What are the advantages for Windows on ARM versus Linux on ARM?
Well, that's a great Mythbuster segue.
Ah, there we go. Good segue.
Yeah.
I wish I had a little sequence. Tory, we need to get a sequence where you go, segue.
I didn't hook it up this time. Next time I'll hook it up.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, if you want something, Linux is a fantastic operating system that's been around for a long time too. What we need to recognize with Linux is that it's not free. Okay, so there's a myth right there. Linux is not free. You're gonna pay a license fee depending on what you're using, whether it's Ubuntu or QNX, or even if you're using Yocto, you've still got a license fee. You've still got a long-term commitment to maintain that operating system. You've got to do maintenance on it. You've got to do, drivers. You've got to put some effort into that. That's not indifferent from Windows on ARM because there still might be some work you have to do there. The nice thing about Windows on ARM is Microsoft is committed, again, to 10 years of license support. You buy it once. There's no maintenance cost. You're going to get it for 15 years for long-term support. So if you look at and you weigh the costs between each, you might be paying $70 for your Ubuntu kernel and maintenance and FIP support and everything else, whereas it's included with Windows. So might be an advantage, and we can dive deeper into that, but that's just kind of surface scratching.
All right. Hopefully that answers your question. I'm actually pretty sure we could go into a dozen or more different advantages and disadvantages in terms of Windows and Linux on ARM. But I think going into maybe a few more other myths might be an interesting thing to go in. So I want to say bust some myths for us here, Trevor. What are some of the more common myths that you hear developers come to you with, people around your company coming to you with, saying is this true or has this been fixed yet, or did it ever exist to begin with?
Yeah, I mean, another common myth is that it's very expensive to run Microsoft, whereas if you're looking at basic packages for Windows on ARM, they're $20. They're not expensive. You can do enterprise key, you can do personal key or private key. It depends on what you're looking at from a scale standpoint. Another thing is a lot of people look at Windows and they think, oh, that's going to be a big operating system, right? It's just not going to run on my NPU. I'm going to need so much memory. I'm going to need so much storage. The fact is, the image is almost comparable at this point with Windows 10 and 11 to any broad branch of Linux kernel. So that's kind of nice because it reduces your memory requirements, reduces your storage requirements, and still, functionally runs on most medium to high end ARM processors. So just a couple of things to throw out there, softballs, right? That's what I see as common objections is it's going to be tough to put this on my machine. It's going to be expensive and it's going to be large, right?
I remember early on that board I was talking about earlier, the Dragon Board 410C, they actually had an image, a Windows IoT image back then. This was a 2014, 15. I have not dabbled in it as much as I should be lately. I'm curious now, though, if I were a developer thinking of transitioning into Windows on ARM, working with embedded devices, what could I do to help this movement go forward? I'm thinking from, let's just say, a community mindset, right? Like I'm a community guy. I like contributing. I like helping. What could I do to help this movement go forward? I want to maybe take my own product into market, right? But I also maybe want to help my other friends who have their products going on, other developers in my community. So a two birds, one stone, win-win situation.
What could you do with Microsoft Windows on ARM? That's a question I wasn't expecting. I think that there's a lot of opportunity for development of certain applications with Windows on ARM. Very, very bespoke kind of, hey, if I'm a developer and I can utilize Windows on ARM, it might be simpler than maybe doing something on iOS or something on Android, especially if I'm in a certain space or place, whether it's medical, whether it's HMI, whether it's, something else. Maybe that's the answer to your question. I'm not sure.
No, actually, I think you did. I think you answered. Yeah. So I mean, possibly working on applications or tools that accelerate other developers' development.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay,
There's a little bit more openness. I understand how the driver and the application kind of signing process go with Microsoft on Windows or Microsoft Windows on ARM. And it's not complicated. I mean, it's a pretty easy execution on that. And one of the beautiful things too for developers or for companies who are in this space is, Microsoft will allow you as well to sell to your OEMs as a reseller in many cases, right? So you can go and buy your enterprise key and you can do your thing and develop your image and develop your application and then deploy it in a relevant manner. Which is nice, right? You don't have to monkey around with a whole lot of paperwork in that space. So you can resell to your OEMs, your ODMs, and people that you do business with.
Tory, let's get you in here, Tory.
Yeah. So I had a question. Speaking of this, kind of what can developers do? I was curious from your perspective what the next 5 years might look like. And with what the next 5 years might look like, what might I, as a developer or my developer friends, how would we prepare for that future from your perspective?
From my perspective, that's a great question, Tory. If I was looking at if I want to take advantage of Windows on ARM and the way the market is going to change and differ, I think I have to go back a little bit. I have to take a step back from that question and say the market is changing right now. And there's a lot of driving factors behind that. So we see a lot of the major device providers. So, the Samsungs, the Huaweis, the Apples of the world, even down into the laptops and tablets, they're starting to make their own silicon, right? We've seen articles even recently from Intel where on x86, they're really, the CEO is kind of more interested in being a foundry. he's not necessarily so super interested in making devices anymore. Sure, that's always going to be part of their business, but they are looking at, okay, who do we also engage on this big stack side to make devices for? So when I say that, what that means is that a lot of the ARM suppliers who traditionally may have enjoyed the places and spaces in those tablets and those phones and from an x86 standpoint in those larger laptops and things like that, are starting to see their market contract. And what they want to do is change their go-to-market strategy and say, how do we do this now? How do we become relevant in 3 to 5 years? And why aren't we doing this with Windows on ARM? Because this is easy. This is, well, I shouldn't say it's easy, but this is deployable. It's scalable. It's wash, rinse, repeat again. So if I was going to prepare for the next 3 to 5 years, I'd be looking at some of the major leading ARM providers, and I'd be watching what ARM is doing and how their contracts are being negotiated with certain suppliers, because ARM licenses this all to the silicon providers, and they're continuing to develop new high performance devices, and those are going to be capable of running Microsoft Windows on ARM. So how do I prepare? Get ready for it. Get trained, understand what the hooks are with Microsoft, understand how to broaden your team, broaden your perspective, because you're going to have customers who are going to ask this of you, right? Not every customer that comes to your doorstep is going to want Ubuntu or some form of Linux. Some of them are going to want Windows on ARM just because of the infrastructure needs, the security needs, the deployability. So get trained, get yourself into the Windows community, start learning about it. Is that a
That's a great answer? Yeah.
First of all, thank you, Trevor, for so much. You've been taking some hardballs here from us, right? Like, I think they weren't even in our sheets, the sheet that we had there going. I want to go into we have some more coming in from the community. I want to go into standardization, right? So embedded systems, they have some very specific requirements, right, compared to general purpose computing. What role? Tell us more about the role of embedded compute platforms in industries like medical, in industrial, aerospace, but also how does the standardizations efforts like PicMug or SJet, how do those impact these designs? Like people who would be working in that space, and I want to look at these standardizations as we relate to it.
Yeah, so PicMig and SJet are two standardized organizations where Avnet is a founding member and executive member. Driving very, very specific form factors. So that includes things like smart modules, ComExpress, OSM, Q7, HPC.com. So, and performance scales based on some of the devices and some of the form factors. It's, very, very specific from an IO standpoint and how that product is placed. What that allows people to do is scale between devices. So you might be using an ARM processor on this particular product and this product strategy, but if you need something more, you could move in the same form factor to an x86, right? Or you could move to a Xilinx, or you could move to even something else. That's the beauty of SJet and PicMig, is that we kind of have that industry flow going where we're saying you don't have to be tied into one particular product or supplier. It's very much ubiquitous, right? We're agnostic on that. And we'll do it with this supplier A, supplier B, supplier C. And you just pick what you need from a performance standpoint. The advantage to the end customer or end use case and outcome is that, hey, look, I only need to maybe have like a dual ARM core on this product with this display running, and it's only 7 inches, and it's only doing this kind of small task. But on this product, which I don't want to requalify, say in the medical space because it's very expensive, or aerospace where it's very expensive to certify and requalify products, I can scale up based on a carrier card and a standardized module and only have to qualify X amount of this product. So my time to revenue is much shorter. my time to my spend, my capital expenditure on it is much less. Does that answer the question on standard devices?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, standards, I mean, I've worked with standards before. Right here behind me, this is the 96 board standard. And that was one of their themes. It's slightly different in this case, though, right? Like you're talking about, I guess in a way it is somewhat the same. Chips, you're going from architecture to architecture, adopting these standards to migrate from architecture to architecture. This was about standardizations so that you could migrate from ARM chip to ARM chip, right? So like you wanted to go from ARM chip to ARM chip. You wanted to have this chip, or this board in particular, this chip or this company made a chip that they put with this manufacturer, and they ended up making a board that had more RAM, right? And so you needed more memory on this for this application. You could scale up by adopting the same form factor, the same IO setup. All these standards were kind of set up in that way. So yeah, I guess, okay, that's great. I love it. Yeah. There are options for scaling and ramping up.
Robert, what we'll do is we'll say, like, we see the strategy of decoupling that hardware from the software and from the customer, from the end customer application and outcome, right? So that we can isolate each of those and manage them separately, or they can manage them separately as it kind of relates to their product strategy.
Love it.
Right?
Love it. Yeah. Very cool. Let's get that community question out of the way here, actually. And we have some comments here too. So there's another one from Hackster. Hi, Hackster. Hi, Avnet. Do it again. What's the coolest application use case that is Windows on ARM we might not be aware of or have not heard of?
I don't know if I can answer that.
Because we haven't heard of it, right? It's like,
yeah.
I'm probably not allowed to answer it, to be honest.
Yeah.
That's all right. You know what we're going to do is we're going to go find some really cool ones online. And then maybe me and Tory will talk about them in a later show. We'll bring them to the next episode. We'll find some really cool Windows on ARM applications, and we'll make a little segment out of that.
We've got some really great ones in the medical space where companies are doing different machines, but they're doing a wash, rinse, repeat strategy with Windows on ARM and smart cards and such. And just being able to scale their devices back and forth, whether it's a bedside monitor or whether it's a X-ray machine or something else like that, right? In an enterprise environment.
Yeah, this actually kind of made me, I don't know why I just thought about this, but, I'm noticing a lot of colleagues, and this was a question I was going to ask, but then removed it. Now I'm thinking of how I might ask this in a different way here. A lot of colleagues have switched over to Windows on ARM, and primarily you're seeing these really nice Snapdragon laptops, right? Now, if we think about the Windows on ARM laptops here, they're running on ARM. Is there a significant difference in terms of developing on Windows on ARM using a Windows on ARM device? I mean, or does it really matter at all? These developers, when they're setting up their developer environment, right? They're working on these embedded devices. So does it benefit them at all to say like, oh, I should get more familiar with developing Windows on ARM on Windows on ARM?
It does. What I find is most of the drivers, most of the support is already there when you deploy a Windows image. Whereas if you're deploying something on another OS, sometimes you have to roll up maybe a driver for your display or a driver for your PHY or a driver for something else from an embedded platform standpoint. I can't speak to the laptop environment because it's not really, my portion of the business. But, if you wanted to deploy an image across 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 devices, Windows on ARM is very, very capable of that. So,
yeah, I remember this being a similar story. Like in terms of when they were doing Linux on ARM for Linux on ARM. It was a very similar story, and so like I was wondering if it applied to this as well. And I mean, I would imagine it would, but I'm glad to hear it actually kind of does. So that's really great. Cool.
Yeah. Your device, the device management. Portion of Windows 10 and 11 IoT is actually very, very good. It wasn't maybe a couple of years ago. They were still kind of working through some stuff with that, but I would say it's very, very deployable now. If
awesome.
That's
Yeah, no, yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah. All right, Tory, you're up.
Wonderful. Well, one of my questions was just, what does that process look like when someone comes to you and says, hey, I want to bring this, proof of concept to market? I'm curious, kind of how you interact with them and if you could tell us a little bit about what that process looks like.
Proof of concept from a hardware and software standpoint, both?
Yes. Yeah. And specifically maybe why you would choose Windows on ARM during this process or kind of where that fits in.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times it's market driven. It's kind of application driven from a software standpoint, and a lot of times the software defines the hardware is what we find, right? Honestly, if application X needs to do this, and this is the software you're using, then here are some options, kind of thing, to develop a proof of concept. From our standpoint, it's all about why are you doing it, and what are you trying to invent here? Because that's more creating the outcome, working with a developer, making sure that we understand what the needs are, and then making some key recommendations based on both the hardware and software. So if the need is driven by having to have Windows on ARM, and we need to help them select an ARM architecture that's appropriate for their application, based on interfaces or memory structures, storage, application needs, etc., then that's kind of where we start to develop that proof of concept or proof of value discussion.
All right.
Because your developers out there are trying to create value for either themselves in their own company or for their end customer application, right?
Yeah.
So it's really about understanding what that is and understanding their end customer.
Yeah, and I could see people wanting a lot of hand-holding because it just seems very difficult to navigate, right? And so, yeah.
I think Tory had a hidden motive there. I think he wanted. I think he's working his way towards bringing a presentation on open muscle to you, right? He might be thinking about moving over to Windows on ARM on that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could see that, could you? Darn, I was trying to keep that a little bit under the surface.
All right, so we are getting close. We are getting close to the top of the hour. Tory, how many more questions do you have? Because I still have a couple more.
It's mostly about innovation. Like, I just think it's awesome. Someone that comes with an idea and they want to innovate in the field. I like to hear success stories. I don't know how much you can actually talk about those stories, but even maybe what you can reveal to us. I would like to hear about specifically about Windows on ARM. But this question was already asked, so I could understand it if you've already answered it.
Do you want to re-ask that to me? Just a little bit?
So I apologize. So when you partner with innovators, you of course hear a lot of success stories. I'm trying to think about how to ask that. Yeah, it's probably just a bad question. Is what I'm thinking of.
No. I think it's a good question. Except I guess success stories. We're talking about the path to product, right? Like, so someone gets to their MVP, right? They're like, okay, I'm at my MVP. Am I ready to go into speak with Avnet? Someone then goes like, okay, well, who do I get a hold of at Avnet? Maybe you get a hold of someone at Avnet. They're like, nope, sorry, go back. You're not done yet. What does a success story look like? Like, kind of paint the picture from A to Z for a success story. And maybe is there an example of a success story out there that that could help developers like Tory over here say, I think I'm ready to talk to Avnet.
Yeah, well, Avnet, we'd like to be involved as early as possible and be a stakeholder in customer initiatives and designs and development. That really helps us, understand the use case, understand the outcome. So we'll do that proof of concept, maybe supply some samples, get some software in hands, get to MVP, right? And then start talking about, okay, now how do you want to deploy this? Do you need repair, refurbish, replace? Do you need global strategies? Do you need other things that we can do? Do you need a call center? Do you need something else, right? And that's a little bit off the topic of Windows on ARM, but honestly, it's what we do, right? if you have a viable product vision and strategy, and you want to go from proof of concept to MVP to deployment, we have all those tools in our box. We're the junk drawer.
Okay. Are there any companies or products that you can say right now? We actually did already ask that question. Now I'm asking it myself. Like, oh yeah, okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Then I want to take us down. I want to take us down my rabbit hole. Then I want to do my rabbit hole journey here. Is that okay there, Trevor?
Yep.
Okay. So the rabbit hole that I'm looking to go down is you've been in Avnet for a long time. Right. I know that there was this time when we weren't going into the offices for COVID and stuff. Hopefully, I'd imagine maybe you're going back into the office, especially now this Windows on ARM thing is getting some hype and getting some movement, some traction. What are you and your colleagues, or what have you noticed your colleagues talking about most? What are they most excited about? Give us some of the excitement that's happening internally, and then maybe we could get excited about some of the same things.
I think that probably the number one thing that I see excitement from my colleagues related to is the fact that we've now got almost 1,000 software engineers on staff. Whereas, traditionally we've been deploying and distributing components, so little black things with silver legs and connectors and, fancy gold platings and things like that. We've also had a lot of value add services and supply chain services in our history. We do that really, really well. What we've done over the last 5 or 6 years is acquire a number of new business units that are related to software to help with customer enablement. And what I see a lot of excitement from my colleagues and from my company in is that we can actually start to make a difference and move the needle with people from a software standpoint and services standpoint. And that's been tough to do. It's a very complex environment when you start to get into firmware and embedded software. And then even as you start to deploy operating systems, it's not always the easiest thing to do, but we're doing it well. We've gotten our head wrapped around it, and we've got some great success stories. Confidentiality agreements probably limit me from necessarily discussing specific deployments.
That's all right. Yeah. I mean,
right.
Eventually maybe we'll see some more of these. Right now, it seems that the market is very much, I don't say confined, but there have been a lot more happening in these more confidential areas. You're talking about the medical field and stuff like that. But, when developers start latching onto things like open muscle, when developers start latching onto things like, smart home devices and such, I mean, like this maybe will be the time when we start seeing some of these more publicly spoken about success stories. And I mean, that's the direction this seems to be headed.
Yeah, I would say, next time you walk up to a kiosk in a fast food restaurant or something, try and recognize what's on there, right?
Okay.
It might not be Android.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
It's crazy. There are kiosks in fast food restaurants now. I'm like, when I went into McDonald's. Yes, I ate McDonald's and the other day, and there was no one behind the counter. Instead, there was one person helping, half a dozen people use this, 6 kiosks. And I was like, interesting. Like this is an interesting thing that I like. I saw them before, but there was always an option. Like someone at the counter and then the kiosk. So like it's the first time I actually walked in and did not see anyone at the counter.
Well, yeah. and HMI interfaces are everywhere. Everybody likes to touch stuff, and we like to do self-service now. So whether that's the till at a grocery store, or whether that's a kiosk at an airport or something like that, these are enterprise deployments, and there's only a couple of options there. So yeah. No, it made me a little bit frustrated not too long ago. This is just slightly off topic. I think just a fun story as we're kind of winding towards the end here anyways. I actually forgot my wallet, and all I had, I usually just carry a little bit of cash in my pocket, right? And I literally tried to buy a bottle of water. Like I tried to buy a bottle of water, and I went to like 3 stores. None of them took cash. And I was like, wow, okay, cash is on its way out. Like, I mean, like actually it wasn't even that. I went to go buy some fish tacos, no cash. And I was like, oh, darn. Okay. Well, then I went to go try. I was like, maybe I could just go get a bottle of water, and then no cash. So
I mean, like, what the heck? That's a
Yeah.
podcast idea for you and me, Tori. We got to talk about, like, you know.
That's right. Well, we're living in that age, you know, and
Yeah.
you know, there's lots of videos in cybersecurity where they'll show kiosks and stuff, and who knows, they're running like Windows XP or some weird thing from 50 years ago. But nowadays, it's so neat that technology is advancing, and we can actually have these devices that are just amazing. They actually improve our lives, and we don't realize it until we forget our cell phone that we can just tap on the kiosk or the, you know, the point of sale machine. It's an interesting time that we live in, but I enjoyed Trevor's, you know, kind of awe about the infrastructure of what everyone is doing. Like it reminds me of the phrase, "We stand on the shoulders of giants," you know, and it takes a lot to just make the tech that we use every day to keep it running. And so anybody that has a solution that has the infrastructure backing that can give you the confidence that, hey, I'm going to use this, you know, proven software as the backing or operating system for my project. You know, I think that's exciting because it allows us to stand on the shoulders of giants and do what we do best, and that's to innovate.
Absolutely. Well, and when you talk about infrastructure, you know, it's, again, you think of something as simple as an EV charger that's connected to all the infrastructure and transactional capabilities that it's connected to. That thing has to be secure. It has to be repeatable, and it has to be safe for people to use. So how do we do that? Right?
Yeah. I want to close this one out here with two things here, Trevor. So number one, if there is a developer out there right now already working on this and or has seen what we're talking about and heard what we're talking about and says, I want to give this a try. I want to transition over. What is that step they need to make? Like, so they're either already working on Windows on ARM and they're like, you know, I kind of feel like I'm maybe getting close to something here. I want to try. I want to now look into this path to product, and or they heard it and they said, like, where do I go first? What's that? Where's the first place I need to go check out and click on? Where's that URL? Where's that resource center, Trevor?
Yeah. So the resource center is me, period. But, you know, if someone's looking for what is my next path, what is my next step, drop me a note and I will take them there, because the world of the internet is big, right? There's a whole bunch of stuff out there, but after 28 years at this company, I can pretty much point you in any direction to find the answer and solution that you're looking for. We have a great site dedicated to Microsoft Windows, covers all the products, not just Windows 10 and Windows 11 IoT for enterprise, but it covers all the way back to, you know, .NET stuff. So it gives you a lot of the history and a lot of the forms that might be required. From an embedded compute standpoint or displays or anything else like that, that is what my group does. We are the Embedded Platforms Group, and we're here to help customers with their platforming strategy. So if there's a developer out there that wants to reach out to myself, it doesn't really matter what their geography is. I'll connect them with the right person with that AOR and make sure that we can move the needle. Fair?
That's awesome. Yeah, no, that's perfect.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And that's Trevor right there. You're okay. I hope you're okay with me sharing your LinkedIn. There's
that's great. No.
Trevor's LinkedIn right there. Everyone, make sure you check that out. And I guess the second thing here is we usually like to close these out with a shameless plug. So I don't know if you have a shameless plug that you'd like to kind of drop in here before we hit those closing arguments, closing moments.
No, you go ahead. Plug away.
No shameless plug. Okay. Well, so Tory, any last words from you before I close this session out?
I just want to thank you both. This was informative for me, and I was excited I got the opportunity to speak with you both today, and to you, the audience, as well.
Awesome. Tory, super pleasure to have you as a co-host. I think that this went great. We're going to get to refine and perfect this over the course of this series. Trevor, I want to thank you just so much. I mean, like the 28 years in the industry, I was 10 years old and you were having your interview. Probably. Yeah. So that's just, I mean, this is great. I mean, where in the world do I get a chance to hang out with amazing people like you and talk about this kind of stuff? So this is great. I just want to give a tremendous thanks to Avnet, and I'm just going to put their website up here. Avnet for making all of this happen, and then of course, one of my favorite developer communities in the entire world. One of the reasons I'm a Hackster Pro is Hackster IO right there. Hackster Pro, Hackster IO. Could get Tory over here, see if we can get him become a Hackster Pro. Make sure you go check that place out. There's amazing projects going on. They have an amazing community, lots of events happening throughout the year, contests, and they also have a vibrant and really cool community that they're building out on Discord as well very soon as well. So just go check them out. And if you have any questions, there's all sorts of interaction capabilities through their website. So that's
Shameless
great.
plug.
Shameless plug. That's your shameless plug.
Hackster, an Avnet company.
All right, there we go. Oh yeah, Hackster, an Avnet company. Yeah, all right, perfect. Hackster, an Avnet company. Okay, well, thank you so much, everyone. I really want to say this is the last thing before I actually hit this in-stream button. You could have spent this hour with anyone else and doing anything else, and I'm just thoroughly grateful for you spending it here with us. So we hope to see you next month when we bring out the next PROCEPTION live stream. We'll be sure to kind of like let you know what it's about beforehand. Keep an eye on the Hackster events page. Keep an eye on LinkedIn. Make sure you check out the devEco. And if you are interested in joining the devEco Discord, we'll kind of flash that there. You can pause the video. But we're very, very, very pleased to have you here. So everyone have a wonderful week, wonderful month, and we'll talk to you all soon. Trevor, we'll see you next time. All right.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.